Hi there. Welcome to another episode of Hooks and Ladders, where we talk about songwriting. I'm Blair Packham.
I'm Allister Bradley.
And today we have a special guest, a very special guest, and an old friend of ours. The wonderfully talented Suzie Vinnick is with us. Hi, Suzie.
Hi, you guys.
You are such a great instrumentalist and singer and songwriter. I admire you deeply. I do have questions, though, and that's why we're here. I want to know, you're someone who has worked in genres, like specifically. You know, you ask a typical singer-songwriter, what kind of music do you play? And they go, I don't know, you know. And I think you might also struggle with that answer because you're several different things. But you will, like, for instance, you've made a blues record fairly recently. And so I want to know, as a songwriter, is that better or worse? Like, is it limiting, or does it actually open up possibilities as a songwriter?
To have options to go to, I think definitely.
To have limits.
Or limits. Limits.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it gives you more of a specialty, right? When you write in certain ways. I listen to so many different styles of music, so I can't help but think that those wind their way into what I create. But the music that I play is typically roots in blues music. So, and I'm pretty influenced by a lot of favorite songwriters. As a teen, I listened to Ricky Lee Jones and Sting, Sean Colvin, just to name a few. There's tons more. So, and I really love that sort of, I guess now would be considered Americana. Then it's probably singer-songwriter, how the genres sort of change names. But so I think there are certain chord progressions and certain song structures that I not sort of subconsciously will go to when I write a song. So I collaborate mostly, which is actually kind of cool. I wrote a song with someone the other day, and I'd come up with the music and a chorus, and she came back to me with verses that fit the chorus, but the chords were different, and I just, at first I kind of went, oh, this is different than what I did, and then I went, this is awesome, because it's just sort of, it went to a different place. So the limits in some ways can help, in some ways can hinder, because you kind of can step outside your box a bit. So I'm really grateful, and I really love how the song has turned out. So
I think the limits, can be empowering, because then you realize, okay, well, I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to do that, but I can do this, this, and this. But what if you write something? Let's say you're writing a blues album, and you end up writing something that really isn't bluesy by any description. It's still you, because it's still Suzie Vinnick, but it's got some maybe bluesy elements, but it's not a blues song. And you just realize as you're finishing it, you think, yeah, this isn't going to fit in this record. Like, what do you do? Do you make it fit? Do you rewrite it? Do you abandon it? Do you keep it for the next one?
yeah, I think you keep it for the next one. It's not a big deal. I mean, you don't want to stifle the muse, right? You want to kind of let stuff come out. You want to also try to stay on task as much as you can, especially if I'm writing for a blues album, to try to sort of stick to something, but at the same time, you kind of want to let that one come out, because that blues one might be right behind it, right? So I just set it aside. You don't throw it out. Put it in, and if you don't completely finish, yeah.
Do you think we could ever, get to the point where genres just become obsolete? There's so much crossover between genres, and yeah, certainly to some people, they want to know, well, so the artist you're going to hear next is a pop artist, or is a blues artist, or is a jazz artist. But again, given all the crossover between genres, and given that it can be, almost oppressive to be told, well, okay, what you're writing needs to be ready for the blues chart or the blues playlist. Do you think we might ever get to the point where we stop talking about genres?
I don't think so. I think people like to be able to kind of pigeonhole and understand and classify. It just, for artists, it may take a while. Like thinking of somebody like Bonnie Raitt, who, I don't know, the specifics, but like if she did a dozen or 20 albums before she had her two Nick of Time and Luck of the Draw that both, brought her to the international stage in such a big way. And she, people call her blues, but if you listen, especially to those, well, I don't know all the albums, so the earlier albums may also have reflected the diversity of like the music that she sang that was not always, the 12-bar kind of shuffly blues, right? So I don't know. And I was thinking even for myself, I've had 3 Juno nominations. The first one was for a contemporary, or was roots and contemporary solo artist. So it was more of a singer-songwriter album and not a blues album. But before that, I had won 10 Maple Blues Awards, or 8 or something like that. So, but I worked with Stephen Fearing, who that genre was more his thing than a blues album, and we put that focus on, right? So the songs ended up, was able to to go into my singer-songwriter song room and pull out ones that weren't done maybe, or that were done and just didn't have a home, and found them a home. So I got my first Juno nom as a roots singer-songwriter, and then the second Juno nom was with the Marigolds, which was a group category, because we were 3-part harmonies. So musically that was jazz and blues and country and bluegrass, like all over the map. And then my third Juno nom was for Me and Mabel, which not sort of your typical 12-bar every song kind of blues song structure, because I covered Never Been to Spain and some classic rock stuff, but in a bluesy vein. So that was my blues nom. So it's sort of, I think the key is maybe when working on a project to really focus on the genre, and then it's at least encompass, a 10 or 12 song album. And
right. So, but that requires that you know what the genre is. When you're asked sometimes, I don't know about you, but in my life, I've been asked, well, what kind of music do you play? And I've actually struggled to come up with an answer, and I should do what Allister has done. Allister, what kind of music do you play?
My music sounds like Sting having cocktails with Norah Jones while Bruce Hornsby and Billy Joel argue over the check.
That's good.
That's never fun. Say a genre, because I've been surprised, in fact, by where my music has landed. I've had a lot of success in the smooth jazz genre before I even knew there was such a thing as smooth jazz. So it's not like I was placing myself in that position or consciously writing to be in that position. But that's where I landed. And as long as I was, being played back to back on radio with artists that I agreed with, like when I hear my song back to back with Sting, I feel pretty good. But again, I don't know what to say if somebody says, what genre of music do you play? Because I think my answer will more often than not be a little misleading.
Well, I've found the Roots and Brews, I can't even talk. Roots and Brews.
We know where you're really at.
It's
right.
morning, Roots
pop
and Blues.
another one.
Yeah, I know, all the water I've had. Roots and Blues has sort of been a nice umbrella, and some people will say, well, what is that? And I'll say, well, it's sort of like if you like Bonnie Raitt, I'll mention Bonnie Raitt, Ricky Lee Jones, and Sting, is a little bit in there, I think. And Sean Colvin, who's a heavy guitar player, acoustic guitar player, and there's more. And of course, I'm forgetting. There's 100 people that have kind of woven into their way into. Like when I talk to students, I talk about stew as guitar players, as songwriters, that there's a pot in front of you, and all these people that you've listened to are in that pot, and it kind of gets mixed in there. And then eventually, because not everyone puts the same ingredients in their pot. So as a guitar player, you might have some Stevie Ray Vaughan in there, and your playing will sound reminiscent a little bit of him. But if you also play slide, you might listen to Bonnie Raitt or Lowell George, and that'll weave its way into your playing. And so, so you kind of, all these people will make their way into your stew, and you end up with your own voice eventually, which I think is kind of cool. I sound like Suzie Vinnick. I don't know.
I think you absolutely sound like Suzie Vinnick. I think, though, that maybe what we're getting at here is that it is important to think about what it is you do and figure it out, like and have an idea of what it is you do, because people, first of all, are inevitably going to ask, but also it facilitates your own writing. I think, as you were saying, Suzie, you sort of you have a box you've decided on. It's not that you've been put in it necessarily, but you've decided on it, and it can help you express yourself through songs.
Yeah, it'll give you a focus. I mean, I'm just thinking of like Rita Shirelli, who is known as a blues singer. But she did a special project a number of years ago, and I know of a few artists that have done this, where she embraced her Italian heritage and took songs that she listened to as a kid that her parents played at home and learned them, and did an album of all these beautiful Italian songs. I don't know if she wrote any or if they were all covers. But and she was able to do that album, and her mom got to hear it, and then her mom passed away. It was like, so for a moment there, she was like a traditional Italian singer for that album. And for her other albums, it's been blues. And myself, it's like Me and Mabel, that definitely showcased me as a blues artist. The album I did with Rick Fiennes was kind of singer-songwriter blues. Like even Matt Anderson from the East Coast wins a ton of blues awards. But when you listen to his music, it's more than just the blues genre. I guess it depends. If a purist listens to it, they're going to say he's not a blues artist, but it's like I can't. It just the blues has influenced so many other genres.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an older one, and so it's woven its way up through rock and roll, and I don't know. So I guess what I'm saying is that if you're working on a particular project, I think it's good to kind of keep a focus on that project. Like, when I did the Me and Mabel album, we chose songs that had some definite blues roots and affectation to it, and that served me well, because then I managed to score the Blues Juno, which is, that's not always going to happen, but I think it helped because my other albums have been pretty eclectic. So when I found that I did have a focus, it served me better as far as accolades and, for a while. So for a while, I'm a contemporary singer-songwriter, and for a little while, I'm a blues artist, right? But they're all still there. My favorite go-to album right now is the Foo Fighters' latest rock and roll album. Whether I will write a Foo Fighters type rock and roll album is a whole other animal, but we'll see.
You never know.
Just for my own pleasure.
I look forward to hearing that. I'll tell you that would be fantastic. Okay, we've got to wrap up, but it's always a pleasure speaking to you, Suzie, and thanks so much for your insights. It's great to hear them.
Thanks for having me on.
So much.
Great to see you guys
Thanks,
and chat with you.
Yeah.